So this video lecture's all about the blood. So previously we've looked at the structure and function of the heart. We've also looked at the different blood vessels. Now let's look what the vessels are responsible for carrying and what the heart's responsible for pumping around the body. So blood actually has like a variety of roles. Basically, the first role of blood is that it's a transport system for the body, but it has to carry an awful lot of things around the body. So think of like the blood vessels are like the road network for the body, and then the blood transports everything around that road network. First thing is oxygen. We need oxygen because it energizes the body. We need it to energize the different organs. We need it to energize the different muscles. So to get there, oxygen has to be transported via the blood. So the blood will actually carry oxygen, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes in a bit more depth. Carbon dioxide is also transported in the blood. Is transported away from the muscles and the organs because it's actually a waste product, and we need to get rid of it. Glucose. So glucose is like pure sugar, which is used as instant energy for the body. We have that consistently throughout the blood, so it can get directed to where it's needed. We carry many different nutrients, so proteins included as well in that, and so is fat. So that they have many different roles in the body, you know, growth and repair, thermoregulation, energy, etc. And obviously we need to get them to different places in the body, and the role of blood is to take them there. Vitamins and minerals are exactly the same. Now hormones is a big one as well. Excuse me. Different hormones do different things. Hormones are like a message sent from the brain in order to make some sort of a change. So, for example, um, if um, if you need to alter your blood sugar levels, a hormone will get released so we can induce insulin, and then insulin can then readjust our blood sugar levels. Enzymes get carried around as well, so enzymes are responsible for different many reactions within the body. So without these being taken around, these reactions cannot take place. Platelets we'll talk about now, and I've already mentioned carbon dioxide. And electrolytes, you lose these through sweat. If you drink Lucozade or Powerade, if you have a look on the ingredients, you'll see that they actually contain electrolytes, and that's because we need to replace them. Electrolytes need to be taken around to the working muscles as well. So what actually makes up blood? Blood isn't just this red substance, it's actually made up by 4 different things. First of all is red blood cells, then you've got your white blood cells, then you've got your platelets, and then your plasma. So you've all cut yourselves and seen blood before. It's like this gloopy, like thick substance. It's not overly thin at all. So it's due to like all the solids that it carries. So if we think back to the previous slide and all the different things the blood actually carries, that's why it's so thick. That's why it's like this gloopy substance. Over half your blood is made up of plasma, and we'll talk about plasma in a bit more depth now. Basically, it's just fluid, it's just water, which means 45% of blood is actually solid. So this is quite a high concentration of solids. Like red blood cells. First of all, we need to know our scientific name for red blood cells, which is erythrocytes. The red in colour, as the name would suggest, but this is due to the presence of hemoglobin. Now, hemoglobin is the binding protein within red blood cells, and it has a high affinity for oxygen. What that means is that oxygen will bind to hemoglobin really well. They go together really nicely. So hemoglobin is responsible for carrying oxygen around the body. It has a concave shape, so it's almost like an inverted disc. So like think of like a button on a suit or something. Concave means it's got like a dip in the middle, and that's so you can fit things like the oxygen in. If that wasn't there, it wouldn't be so efficient in carrying oxygen. And their main role is to transport oxygen. And you've got absolutely millions and millions in the body. I mean, distance runners look to increase the amount of red blood cells they have via their training. By increasing the amount of red blood cells, that means we get more oxygen around the body, so you get more energy, so you can work for longer. If you download the slides, click that image, and it just takes you to a YouTube video about red blood cells. Okay, this was just a task we did in class. Okay, white blood cells. So, scientific name is leukocytes. You may have heard of the term leukemia. That is actually cancer of the white blood cells. you've got much, much fewer than red blood cells. So the ratio is actually for every 700 red blood cells you only have one white blood cell. So they form part of the immune system. The immune system is responsible for fighting off infections and bacteria and things like that. So like I said, they destroy bacteria and therefore they remove disease from the body. That's their role. They're like almost like the police force in the body. Platelets. Now, if you cut yourself, these are the things you need. They're very, very, very important. So what they'll do is cause a clot and they'll stop blood getting lost from that blood vessel. So if you cut yourself, as soon as a platelet becomes exposed to air, they become sticky. So this is what causes the clot, because the presence of air there, it becomes sticky, causes a blood clot, which then prevents further blood loss out of the blood vessel. Now they can only work if they got something called factor VIII. There's a substance for them called factor VIII, but unfortunately some people don't have these. If factor VIII isn't present at all, platelets just can't clot. So if a person who can't clot their blood, they're known as a haemophiliac. Right, plasma. Like I said, I want you to think of this as water. It is purely fluid, and it actually makes up 55% of the blood, as we said earlier. So it's the solution which carries all the solids. So what I want you to picture is like a slide, like a horizontal water slide. So there's a current. Now, if you've put a load of rubber rings, beach balls, stuff like that within this slide, and there's no water there, they're not going to move, are they? They're not going to move at all. Now, if you add a little bit of water there, they start moving really slowly. But if you have a lot of water, we can move them around very, very quickly. This is what happens when you're dehydrated. So dehydrated means you haven't got enough water within your body. So this will affect the transport of blood. So if you think back to the example I just explained, so like this horizontal water slide with all the rubber rings and inflatables in it, if you take half of the water out, they're going to go much slower through this slide, and that's because there's less water to carry it. They're going to block and get in each other's way. Think of this while you're exercising. If the oxygen's getting to your muscles slower, if the carbon dioxide is being removed slower, things like hormones can't be transported to where they need to go. This is going to affect your performance in exercise because you just can't get the energy to the working muscles. You just can't get rid of the waste products, which is going to have a detrimental effect to your sporting performance. If you click that link there, it shows the severe example of dehydration of 2 women from an Ironman competition. This bit now, absolutely nothing to do with your BTEC. This is from the YMCA spec, but I'll just go over it quickly. You need to know it for your exam. So blood pressure is described as the amount of pressure that's exerted onto the walls of the blood vessels as blood moves through them, specifically the arteries. So when the heart pumps, the pressure is at its highest. Now this is known as systolic pressure. So I want you to think of S and S. So S for squeeze for contraction, S for systolic. When we relax is known as diastolic. And this is the way blood pressure is read. So you have a systolic pressure over a diastolic pressure. So you may have heard someone say I got a blood pressure of 120 over 80. 120 is the systolic pressure, whereas 80 is that diastolic pressure. And it's measured in milligrams of mercury, which is mmHg. Very common exam question that is what is blood pressure measured in. These are classifications you need to know about. So we've got 4 classifications: hypotension, hypertension. So hypo means low and hyper means high. The way I want you to remember that is if someone never tells you, you're hyper today, it's because you're very energetic, you're like bubbly. So that's how I want you to remember the difference between hyper and hypo. So hypertension is obviously high blood pressure. So if you were 140 over 90, so your systolic is 140 and your diastolic is 90, then you are in hypertension. Any values above that also puts you in hypertension. Now, hypotension is if you're below 90 or below over 60. That puts you in a low blood pressure. So our normal blood pressure is 90 to 120 over 80 to 90. They say the average is 120 over 80. So we got one more now. It's called pre-high blood pressure. So it's in like a danger zone almost, where you could go into a state of high blood pressure. That is 120 to 140 over 180. Oh, sorry, over 80 to 90. Okay, if you click this star, it takes you to a YouTube video, explains to you how to take blood pressure. The way you take blood pressure is through a machine called a sphygmomanometer. The sphygmomanometer, it's just a cuff machine that goes around you and it connects to a computer, gives you a blood pressure reading. However, you've got the old school ones as well where you need a stethoscope as well. Now what you need to do is pump up the cuff while listening to the flow of blood through the artery. Now, if you just listen to it without the cuff there, you should be able to hear the pulse of blood going through. Now, the point of pumping the cuff the cuff up is so you don't hear the pressure no more, and then as you release it, as soon as you start to hear that going through, that's when you know you've got your blood pressure readings. You got to check the dial. And then we were just done an experiment to raise our blood pressure and talked about how blood pressure raised and stuff. Obviously, blood pressure's got to rise because you need more oxygen at the working muscles. You've got to pump blood faster, therefore it's going to go through at higher pressure.